So for everyone who has joined, please welcome the amazing Imani Erriu, who is the author of our January book, Heavenly Bodies, not all clubs, but majority of them, and the newly released Fallen Stars, who, if you know me, you would probably have heard me rant and rave about it a billion times, which I'm so incredibly grateful that we've made it a club choice across our clubs, because I feel like I've been talking about it for so long, and it's nice to see everyone reading it. So to start, Heavenly Bodies and recently Fallen Stars has had an amazing response across readers. And I know you've just been on tour in the US literally today. If anyone listening didn't know, she's literally just landed back in the UK today. So it's an absolute incredible feat that you're here with us. And we were chatting before the call about this being a good thing to keep you awake. And if you fall asleep, I will personally take that very bad and never do a Q&A again. But thank you so much for joining us.
No, of course.
And then you've got your UK tour coming up.
Yes.
I'll just let that person in. Oops. Oh, they're in, I think. So for you as an author, how does it feel to sort of see people in the community and connect so deeply with the world that you've created?
It's honestly my favorite part of the entire job, I think. Apart from actually writing the book, which I love too, it's so lovely to actually meet the readers. And yeah, you kind of feel like you're on cloud nine. So when I was in America, obviously I'm kind of in a bubble here, and I suppose a lot of UK authors may feel the same. Like, you see the response around the UK and obviously where you're living, but not so much outside. So it was like, it hit me when I was away, like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize I had these readers in like Calgary or Vancouver, because I was in a lot of Canada as well. So that was so beautiful to be able to meet them, and more than anything, to thank them so much for all their support in person. And they are just the sweetest. Like, I know every author's biased, but I do feel like I have the best readers in the entire world. And even like my publishing team who are with me on the tour say it, they're like, God, like, your readers are just so kind and lovely, and just so like warm and approachable. And yeah, so it's amazing. Definitely favorite part of the job.
Yeah, and it's nice to have that like recognition come back, especially like face to face as well, because so much of what you would do would be, you know, sitting at a computer or reading things, and just to have that, you know, face to face moment where I suppose it would all just click, like, this is why I do it. And
yeah, for sure. And like you said, it's such an isolating process. You are just kind of in your own world, at your laptop, at your desk. It's not a job where you even have like colleagues necessarily that you can just see every day and whatnot. So it is the sort of more sociable aspect of the job, which is really lovely.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. And going like into that social aspect, I mean, chapter 25 we say is that like we've built this on connection and community. And how do you think the reader community has impacted your experience as an author?
Oh my goodness. Well, my book wouldn't exist without it, you know. I think that I had such a wonderful journey, and I don't know if maybe it's something we'll get into a bit later in the chat too, from being an indie author and turning traditional, that I was really, it was kind of like boots on the ground, you know, being able to connect with readers. Whereas I suppose that if some authors who maybe take a traditional deal first, they don't have that whole aspect where they really connect with readers kind of beforehand, and they just can sometimes publish the book and that's it. But for me, it was so lovely because through social media especially, I was able to connect with my readership. So as I said, without these readers, the book just wouldn't exist, and without them even encouraging it as I was writing it before it had even been published. So it's been an amazing experience for sure.
Yeah, I will touch on that. If people listening don't know how sort of Heavenly Bodies came to be, I will touch on that because it is so unique and so amazing. So yeah, I've got that on my list. So we will cover that. And to start, before we start talking about Heavenly Bodies, can you describe for us Heavenly Bodies in 3 feelings, not words?
Oh, okay. 3 feelings. So I would say in 3 feelings, let me have a think. Heart-wrenching. That's like the first one that comes to mind. Another feeling I hope it gives you guys is healing and hope.
Oh, I like that.
They're my top 3.
I feel like they balance each other out a bit, because you start with like heart-wrenching, which is like you're obvious. Yes, absolutely.
And I also kind of feel like I've done it backwards, because the heart-wrenching kind of is more to the end and the hope and healing is before, and then it seems like all hope is lost. So I kind of did it backwards there.
But you like ended on a high, which was
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
But I'm reflecting and I'm thinking, yeah, that was
Mhm,
absolutely the reverse
mhm.
of my experience. And can you tell us a little bit about your writing process for Heavenly Bodies and Fallen Stars? I know I've heard this before. You are a pantser by definition.
Yes,
And for
absolutely.
those listening who don't know about that, and for me, I've only just come to learn the
The term.
flutter of
Mhm.
pantser. But for those of us listening who don't know what that means, can you elaborate on that a little bit for us?
Of course. So I actually only learned recently where it comes from, and it's some phrase. It means like flying by the seat of your pants or something. It's like
Yeah,
some kind of phrase. That's where pantsing comes from. I kind of didn't even know. I just heard, are you a plotter
yeah,
or a pantser a lot? And pantsing is kind of not having a specific plan, not having like a crazy detailed plot plan,
yeah,
and vibing more with the book. And most authors fall into either category. Some are meticulous and they will chapter plan every single one, and then pantser more, they'll sit at the desk and see what comes to them that day. So I definitely fall more into that category.
I love it. It was, I think the first time I heard it, I was like, is this like a joke? Like,
Yeah.
I don't, it's what a obscure thing to ask. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's incredibly common. And like you say, people do sort of tend to sit in one of them. And I do feel like, especially the plotters, they heavily sit in that category.
For sure. I'm so envious. Like some of my friends, I'll see their stories and they just have like the most perfect Scrivener setup. And that's like each title chapter and it's like ticked off the ones they've done and the ones they haven't. And I was like, I could only wish to be that organized. But I've truly tried it and it physically doesn't work for me. But one thing I will say is I do plan in the sense that I know the endings of every single one of my books before I write them. And I know at least like some key points or the relationships that might bloom. So then it
Yeah,
gives me something, but I like to be surprised by my writing. And I saw another another author, Ava Reed, say this, that she likes to be surprised by herself and that sometimes by having a plot, it kind of doesn't allow those creative juices to flow, let's say. So for example, with
yeah,
Fallen Stars, to talk a bit about the writing process there was a whole the subplot with Annabelle, if any of you have read it,
yeah.
and that came out of nowhere. I had not planned for any of that plot, even the character I hadn't, and it just came as I was writing. I thought if I'd done it the other way, it maybe never would have come to be. So it's definitely a fun way to write for sure.
Yeah. And I think as well, because again, if people on this call have read Heavenly Bodies and then Fallen Stars, you would know that your endings are quite notoriously heart-wrenching, like you say. So I
Yeah.
suppose for you as an author, if you start in like that, you know how it's going to end in like that most negative aspect, everything after that's going to seem like really lovely. Like it's like watching a sad film in reverse.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, that's a really beautiful way to put it, actually. And it's true. And it is kind of, you're right, it is playing it in reverse then. And like, how do these characters get to this point? Yeah.
yeah. And everything up until then seems amazing.
Yes.
And then in the last 10 pages, just and yeah, what I mean, yeah, I know you've said that there's not an element of planning, but what would a sort of typical day or week, month,
Mhm.
of writing look like for you?
Yeah, for sure. So I wish that I could write every single day. Again, it's something I've tried when you're kind of trying and testing what's more productive to you. And I find for my creativity to flow and to be able to write, I need long periods of rest. So I
Yeah.
might go a week, 2 weeks, sometimes even three, just like not writing a word, but everything's always bubbling still. And I live in the Lake District, so I'm in a beautiful part of the world. And it sounds very fantastical and whimsical, which it is, but I love to go for long walks in the forest. I know that's like a very fantasy author thing to say,
Love that.
but when I put my music in and I just get to walk, it just helps to open my mind so much. It gives me so much inspiration. And then, as
Yeah.
I said, it means that when I do sit down at my desk, I've had kind of all of these ideas churning and all of these plot twists sort of beginning to tie together. And then from that moment, I'm able to really let loose and just sit down at the computer and write. So I would
Yeah.
say, like, my perfect, when I've got enough time and I am in a good routine, I'd say kind of once or twice a week is when I like to really sit down and write. And then the rest of the time, it will just be sort of daydreaming, imagining, and deciding what it is I'm going to write when I get to the computer.
Yeah. I have got that written down actually about you living in the Lake District. And
Yes.
just to jump ahead, like to enhance, I suppose, what you've just
Mhm.
said, do you feel like you've been gifted in that sense and it enhances your imagination, and do you draw on those like natural elements specifically from there, you know, from the physical, and then obviously the potential folklore and historical elements? And
100%. Again, it's another reason why I think that maybe if I'd been brought up in a city, maybe I wouldn't have been so drawn to writing fantasy or something like that. And I was so gifted with such an amazing place to live and an amazing childhood. Like even when I was younger, my mum was always taking me and my brother and then my sister when she came along out to the forest. We were always kind of playing games and in these imaginary worlds. And I think from a very, very young age, it's in my author bio that I've always had a very overactive imagination, and it's true. And I think it was my surroundings. So I spent a long time away from fantasy. Kind of, I feel like a lot of people can probably relate. And I was at university and I was studying all the classics and that kind of thing, and just completely neglected fantasy. And then I actually discovered, I was maybe, I want to say 19, and I discovered Caraval by Stephanie Garber, and it just sounded so good to me. I hadn't read fantasy in years, and I picked it back up, and that was my reminder of just how amazing fantasy is and how I just wanted to be back in that genre and live in that world again. So another person I have to thank so much for my career is her, because if I hadn't picked up that book, who knows, like maybe I wouldn't have fallen back in love with the genre and then read more and then wanted to actually write within it. But to go back to your question, being in this place, it's definitely a wonderfully peaceful place and gives me a lot of inspiration for sure.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful part of the world. I'm not too far from there, so
Really amazing.
So try and get there as much as I can. But yeah, it's a stunning part of the world. And talking about things that are important to you, I know, I mean, you can tell by your background a little bit, but you know, you are really inspired by astrology and you know, those celestial elements. And have you put any thought into sort of what star signs you would align to some of your characters, and have you built star charts for any of them?
Absolutely. I love this question because I feel like I could just talk to you for an hour and a half about astrology.
Please
by
do.
itself. As anyone in the chat can tell, I like astrology. Surprise, surprise. And I think for me, yes, I know all of the characters, and it was kind of easy enough because that's how I dedicated the kingdoms they were going to live to. So obviously we have, for anyone who hasn't read the books or can't remember, there are 12 different kingdoms, and each one is inspired and sort of based on a different zodiac sign. And then the stars in the world are gods, and each god is sort of the patron star, the patron god of each different kingdom. So Elara is a Pisces because she lives in the kingdom of Asteria, which is ruled by Pycea. And that was very true to her character, because a lot of people think she's a Scorpio, and she does have a Scorpio moon in my head. So I have done her birth chart, and she's got Scorpio rising as well, for anyone interested.
Spicy.
Yeah, spicy. Well, she's got that depth to her, right? That darkness. And my best friend is a Scorpio moon, and she always jokes that it's like drawing blood from a stone, trying to get her to express her emotions, even though she feels them so deeply within. And if that isn't Ilara to a T, that's literally the plot of the whole book, is trying to get her emotions out. So it tracks. But her being a Pisces, you know, the Pisces are really connected to the spiritual realm, the subconscious realms. They're very dreamy and kind of have one foot in this world and one foot in another. And I feel like that's also very true of Alara, and, you know, her sort of her dream walking and illusioning. It's very on brand for her. And then Enzo, if no one has guessed it, is a Leo through and through. He's literally called the Lion of Helios. And I'm a Leo, so that was like my gift to him, you know, to be a Leo too. And again, it makes sense. He's got this kind of fiery disposition, but he's got a huge heart. And I think, again, knowing a lot about the star signs, that's very true of Leos. They are loyal to a fault, which is definitely him. But they also can like to be the sort of center of attention, which is also him. And so it was fun to be able to play off the characters and knowing what their signs were going to be based off the kingdoms they were in.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love reading it as well. I'm thinking, like, I'm an Aquarius, but I like reading it and thinking, like, oh, that's a bit of me. But
yeah, for sure.
And everyone, I feel like people that don't necessarily believe or follow it, they always know what star sign they are. So
Oh my
you do
God.
kind of believe it a little bit,
Yes.
don't you?
The fact you have said that, I think you have nearly word for word taken out of my mouth what I said in, was it my fairy loot letter? I've said the words that why heavenly bodies came to be is that what fascinates me is exactly what you said. People will say they don't believe in it, but will still know their star sign and things
Yeah,
like that. So that's so cool you said that, because I agree. It's so deeply entrenched within our culture, and I find that
yeah,
so fascinating. Yeah, I
it is
love
funny.
that you think the same.
Yeah, because people will be like, "Oh, I don't follow any of that," and then they'll be
Hmm.
like, "Oh, that's so Scorpio of you," and I think
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
more than you're letting
Yeah.
on. Like, sure. But yeah, no, it's absolutely true. And to talk a little bit about sort of the themes, there are so many different like layers and elements, I think, in Heavenly Bodies and then Fallen Stars,
Mhm.
which I personally love, that it, you know, that fresh take on the romantasy genre,
Mhm.
bringing in that, you know, celestial element to it.
Mhm.
And is there a place that you go, maybe spiritually, mentally, physically, even, that you would gain inspiration for those?
I think that with the different layers, there's one specifically that comes to the forefront of my mind, and it's the idea of healing throughout both books, but also specifically the idea of shadow work, which is a huge, huge theme at play, especially in Heavenly Bodies. And I personally had to really dig into a deeply spiritual place that I hadn't looked at either when I was writing Alara's character.
Yeah,
And again, as you can tell by my background, I am into my spirituality and I've got lots of lovely crystals behind me. But there's this really interesting uh, idea of shadow work. And I don't know if it was completely created by Carl Jung or if it existed before and then he just kind of labeled the phrase or did more research on it. But it's this idea that we all have a shadow side and a kind of repressed side that we try to ignore, and all of our flaws go into that. But if we aren't able to sort of meet it and accept it in, we can never be fully healed or fully kind of whole. It will always linger and there'll always be kind of, we'll never be able to be completely content. So
yeah,
that was a big theme that I explored in Heavenly Bodies. And I made it a quite literal manifestation in the form of
yeah,
Elara not being able to access her shadows because they were all locked up within her.
yeah,
And for those who have read it, you'll know the scene when she does finally meet her shadow. And her shadow speaks to her and tells her, you know, that I've been waiting here all this time, like you never once looked at me. And I
yeah,
remember crying my eyes out when I wrote that scene. So when you mentioned kind of having to delve into a different place to write some of these deeper themes, that was one that struck me really hard because it felt very cathartic when I wrote it. And
yeah,
my hope was that anyone who read it, it would be a cathartic experience for them too, that they would almost feel like they were healing along with Alara on her journey, or could at
yeah.
least take something away from that and maybe look at their own shadows and accept them, and look at their flaws and see that they're nothing that they need to hide from, or they don't need to appear perfect and filled with light. So that's like one really big theme that springs to mind when you ask that.
Yeah, and also that acceptance that like it's actually been with you the whole time. It's
Yeah.
just that you've chosen not to look at it, and like
Yeah.
that you've, that awareness that like you've actually been going through life with it as a part of you, and
Mhm.
then you've actually just sort of turned your face to it and been like, "Oh, you've been here this whole time. I
Yeah.
can do this," you know?
Oh, and it makes me feel even a bit emotional, like when you say that, because it is so true. And it's so sad that so many of us are taught we have to kind of show this perfect veneer to the world, right? And I'd thought that for a long time. And it wasn't until even the last, I don't know, 8 years, I think it was kind of like mid 20s that I started to really explore that idea. And it's all a big part of loving yourself more too, right? Which is what poor Alara is on the journey of also.
Yeah, no, 100%. So chapter 25 members are creative in so many ways, and a
Mhm.
lot of them are amazing, inspiring authors. What
Awesome.
parts of you, and you've sort of just touched on this a little bit, what parts of you did you sort of pour most into the book? And do you ever feel scared to put certain emotions onto the page, or certain themes that you sort of reluctant to include?
Definitely. I think there's a lot of authors, I'm sure will agree, there's a big vulnerability in writing. And it's kind of, it's easy enough when you're by yourself doing it, because then you can kind of pour anything you want into your
Yeah,
writing. But it's when you remember, oh my God, the whole world is going to see this, that's when it can start to feel really daunting. And I remember I actually had that panic before I published Heavenly Bodies Indie, because you're right, I did put a lot of myself into it, and I'll talk a bit more about other things I did. So it does feel exposing, because you're kind of like, oh my God, are people going to see right through this? Like, are they going to see my whole experiences? And you kind of do have to get over that fear and be like, well, there's nothing wrong with that, with people kind of seeing those parts of you, I suppose, and hopefully other people will be able to relate, which is really, in my opinion, why you write at all, so that you can help other people, so that other people can feel seen. So yeah, I think that I put parts of myself into every single character, and I feel like all my characters are a bit of a mosaic of me, but then also of the people I love too. So Elara, for example, so much of her I cannot relate to. I feel like she's much braver than me, fiercer than me. She's a lot sassier and like more badass than me. But I think the part of me I put into her was especially that whole idea of having her emotions locked in a box, or being told she's too sensitive her whole life. That was like a big thing I was always told. Imani, you're too sensitive, you're too emotional. And it wasn't until I started writing, actually, that I saw what a gift it was, because I almost saw it as a burden that I felt so deeply. And then when I started writing, I thought, well, I wouldn't be able to write if I didn't feel these things so deeply. And so it really showed me what a blessing it could be. And that's one of the most beautiful things I've been told by readers. You know how we were speaking at the beginning about kind of how does it feel to sort of meet them, and I was saying it's my favorite part, and one of them is if a reader has come up to me and said, you know, I feel so seen by Lara, like I too was always told I was too sensitive and things like that, and that could just make me cry. It's just so amazing to hear that, and that other people who have been told these things can find some kind of self-acceptance, right? So I would say that that part of Ilara is me. And then with Enzo, I would say his heart and like how deeply he loves. I tried to kind of put my experiences into him, but also with Enzo, I wanted to create, I think, a kind of character that I was looking for, like someone that sees you at your absolute worst and loves and accepts you anyway, which I know is like a big enemies to lovers, why people love enemies to lovers so much. And then also that to have someone that can help to heal you and like draw those shadows out. And that's why I made them such complete elemental opposites, because I wanted Enzo, I wanted Alara to not be able to hide from Enzo. She is able to hide and run and cast illusions over everyone in her life, but Enzo is the one person that can see right through it all. And I think that that's so important. I think if you have someone like that in your life, you can be very blessed, and they can like tell you it straight and tell you the truth and shine their light on you. So that was why I created Enzo. And then there's many other characters that I put parts of myself into. I always say that Marissa is just me. Like if you read Marissa's character, you will know me. So we get to her story more in Holy Monsters, and that's been very, very beautiful, because I feel like I've been able to pour a lot more of myself into that book, because I relate to Marissa so much. So hopefully you guys will see that when you end up reading book 3 too.
That is exciting. I think she's a fantastic character, and I would love to know.
I love her. She's my baby. She's just so kind of sweet and soft, and she feels almost like she doesn't have a place in that world, with everyone being kind of so strong and able to fight and things around her. And I think there's so many of us that read books and want to be like Alara, but maybe in reality are actually more like Marissa. So it was so important for me to have a sort of softer, more feminine kind of character like that within the book too.
And she's a great cook, so that's always a plus.
Exactly.
That's a big one. Speaking on enemies to lovers, Enzo and Alara are, as you'd say, enemies to lovers. Was it important to incorporate that into the story, and is it something that you're drawn to as a reader?
For sure. I mean, it's one of my favorite tropes to read. So if for my own fun, I wanted to put it in there, because I think it's so much fun to write, and you can create so much tension with it, which I love. And I kind of wanted readers to be sort of giggling and kicking their feet at some of the interactions when they really, really hate each other. It was very entertaining to write. I remember writing the cliff scene and giggling at my computer as I was typing right before he pushes the rabbit. I was like, oh, these people are going to love this. So it was very, very fun. But then also on a deeper level, kind of as I touched on, the whole idea why I know a lot of people love enemies to lovers, and why I love enemies to lovers too, is because it is someone that sees you at your worst first and then chooses to love you. And I think as well, because I had this trope in there of a kind of fated mates, because that's sort of destined, it then makes it nicer when beforehand the character is choosing the other. It sort of, for me, gave another level to their love, which was important to incorporate.
Yeah. Well, I loved it. And I love,
thank you.
Yeah, I personally love the enemies to lovers trope. So
yeah, I love it. Any book that has it in, I'll eat it up.
yes. Immediately add. And just talking about the moment where you talk about kicking your feet and you're thinking, oh, people are gonna love this. On the other moment, on the other hand, is there a moment where you realize, like, okay, this is really going to hurt people, and like, I'm not sorry about it?
Yeah. Can I do spoilers? Like, has everyone in this read this if I talk about the ending, or should I be more vague? You tell me.
I would assume well, just the thumbs up. Go ahead.
Okay, let's go ahead.
The people have spoken.
at the end, when Enzo dies, I knew that was going to hurt readers so much. Actually, before that, when you think he's betraying Ilara,
the betrayal,
and handing the dagger over, I knew that would hurt readers, but I was like, it's necessary because I need to keep you guys on your feet. And I really love, my favorite books to read are the ones where the last 100 pages are chaos and it's like one twist after another, so I knew I wanted to write those kinds of endings too. I wanted them to be memorable endings. So having all those moments of duplicity and deception was a lot for me. And then right at the very end, when Enzo's hurt and Ilara's cradling him in the water, again, that was another moment I cried writing. I think that and The Shadow were the only two parts I cried writing. But again, it was important for me, for one, to show how deep their love was at that point. But then also, I think, again, it was necessary for the story. I always say I don't like to write happy endings. I like to write bittersweet endings. So I love reading happy endings, don't get me wrong. But I will say the endings that always stay with me the most are the ones that end sadly, or there's a kind of bittersweetness to them. I don't know if you've ever read Fury Born by Claire Legrand, her trilogy.
Yeah.
That ending of the last book for me is like as perfect an ending as it gets. I remember reading that and it has stuck with me since, and it's very bittersweet is the way to describe it. And then the Nevernight series by Jay Kristoff is one of my other favorite series of all time.
Yeah.
And I remember at the end of that, again, he does not shy away from pain and suffering and unhappy endings. And reading that again stayed in my mind till now. And if they can be some of my favorite series, it's for a reason. So I thought they're the kind of endings I need to give you in the books. So sorry everyone for any pain I may have caused.
Keep doing it. I love it. Like, personally, as a reader, if it doesn't feel like it's kind of kicked me in the gut a little bit, I'm like, what next? I need that like grab. And I don't know if it's because I'm a bit of like a masochist, but I like to be physically and emotionally pained by the books that I read. So keep doing it. But it's nice to know that things are hopefully going to be bittersweet, as you say, not as traumatic.
Not just bitter.
So to go back, like we spoke at the start about your journey from being indie to trad published, to just jump to a completely different category, by the way, you amazingly utilized social media and book talk before the indie release of Heavenly Bodies. And do you have any advice for anyone that is a little intimidated by the platform in general, but really wanting to use that as a way to sort of self-market as an author?
For sure. I think that the first thing I will say, it's so cliche and people will have heard it 100 times. You have to not care what anyone is going to think about you or say to you. The moment, and this is kind of a bigger message too, I suppose, but the moment you begin to care and worry what others think, the moment your life is going to be dictated by them. And I think for a long while, I had no self-belief when it came to writing. And my biggest sort of worry was, how do I even go about writing a book? Like, I don't, and I would compare myself to other authors. I'd be like, I don't have a degree in creative writing. I haven't studied, like, how would I don't know plot. How would I go about creating a plot? How would I go about creating characters? And there are 10 billion reasons why you cannot be an author, and it should not stop you. And I think to go off that with the social media, I was kind of at a point where I had stopped caring if anyone was going to think I was like silly for posting, dreaming too big, whatever. I just thought all I was thinking about was, this sets my soul alight to write. and I want to publish my book and
Yeah.
have it out in the world. So here's how I'm going to do it. And I remember I had like one of those burner TikTok accounts, which is like user 1600 or whatever, because I wasn't like super on it. But my algorithm was all book talk, and I was like, this
Yeah.
is so cool. And this was way back in the day, like when, you know, book talk was like huge, and back in the good old days, you know. Now I feel like TikTok in general, the algorithm and everything is just
Wild.
so trash. Yeah. But back in the day, it was like, it was so exciting seeing other authors speak about the books and go viral, or, you know,
Yeah.
I would see really fun trends, which again is sad people don't do so much now, and like using audio sounds and kind of doing trends that were bookish. And I really enjoyed it. And I thought, hang on a minute, I thought I could just create a TikTok and speak about my book and see where it goes. And I think I'd written, I think in the past I've said halfway through the book, but I don't think I was. I think I'd only written a few of my favorite scenes so far, and I had like the world and the characters, but the plot was nowhere near done. And I thought, let me just create an account. And I did. And I honestly think that was the moment I took myself seriously, because I thought, I'm going to be
You've done
acting
it.
as an author now,
Yeah.
talking about my book. Whereas before it was always kind of like a dream in your head, I suppose. And yeah, my advice to anyone would be just create that account, post that video. Who cares if the first one doesn't blow up? Mine didn't. I started getting a few comments rolling in and was so excited. And then it was my second video I posted. I was looking at trends and saw a sound that was like loads of people going viral using it. And I
Yeah.
just adapted it to my book. And that was the one that went viral. And that was the second video. So you guys, you can do anything you set your mind to. I would say, like, in a very practical way, really observe TikTok, observe the algorithm, observe book talk, look at the kind of videos that go viral, look at the kind of sounds they used to go viral, the trends. And the more I started observing that, it was then, again, back in the day with the algorithm, every other video could go viral. And
Yeah.
you've just got to be smart with it and really pay attention, and also just be passionate about your book, because people love to see that. They love to see someone talking about their book, really knowing it. Even things like I did like Pinterest boards, and so them seeing the aesthetics and stuff is really fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, honestly, guys, just create that author TikTok account, create that author Instagram, have somewhere that readers can start to come to and find you. And that's just the first step. But it really comes down to, you've got to not care at all what anyone is going to say, because
Yeah.
you can't let your passion in life be dictated by the worries of nobodies, you know, who like what, because they're the only people that are going to be hating or speaking badly on you. So why would
Yeah.
you care or put any worth in their opinion of you? That's how you've got to view it, I think, for sure.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And it's such a brilliant tool, I think, the book talk and the bookstagram element. And I think I've noticed since I've sort of been in this sort of industry and been a reader myself, is that like people that you never would have thought in the world would be so active in these, like on these
Yes.
accounts, and then you like see them and you think, oh my God, good for you. Like it
Yes,
is
it's amazing.
amazing.
Yeah.
um so yeah, perhaps I am like you were
Mhm.
a lurker on TikTok.
Yeah. Yeah.
um I don't currently have any plans to change that, because I
Mhm.
don't plan on writing a book, but
Mhm.
if I did, thank you for your advice, because that
Oh,
is very useful.
no, you're
um
welcome.
and to sort of set the scene about the, you know, the viral element of it, your TikTok had essentially gone viral before the book was
Mhm.
out, like you said. What kind of pressure did that sort of put on you once it sort of blew up, to think, oh, okay, I've probably got to finish this now?
Yeah, it was actually a really fun kind of pressure, because I don't remember ever being kind of stressed or worried that like, oh my God, now I've got readers. I was really glad that now I had people interested. And I remember it did give me a pressure in a good way to be like, okay, Imani, you do have to finish this book. As you said, I was kind of like, oh my God, I'd better get to the end of it now. And it was nice because it gave me an end date. I was like, okay, realistically, now that I have a readership, when can I get this done? Then I set that date and work
Yeah.
towards it. Whereas maybe if not, and you kind of didn't have that, like, okay, that people were going to read the book, you might kind of dilly dally and not
Yeah.
be like, oh, it'll be finished when it's finished. So it gave me a good pressure. It gave me a kind of moving force, I think, like a big push.
Yeah. And from then you did move into the traditionally publisher world, where we sort of know you more from now.
Yeah.
Did you do a full rewrite, or has it sort of affected your, you know, writing and editing process?
It definitely has affected it, but in the best way I could imagine. So book one, it's all the main points and main scenes I loved stayed the same. A few scenes were cut, nothing big, just things that were maybe repetitive that I ended up kind of merging together. So say they would like all happen in one particular place rather than like two repetitive scenes at different places in the book. And book one, I feel like I just made richer. So for example, Ilara had much more of a backstory and her shadows being blocked and how it came about. It was that wasn't in the indie version. So that was really amazing to explore. And then I even fleshed out some side characters. So Leo, for example, we in the indie versions had none of his backstory, how he met Enzo, became friends with him. So that was really fun to do that because my editor, and it was what I'd been looking for when I was indie and had never been able to have someone to just direct and make the book better, which is what you want. You don't want someone who's going to like completely change it to fit their vision, but just help you really enhance it. And book one really did that. But then book two, oh my God, those books are like unrecognizable. Yeah. If you read the indie version versus the normal one, I would say the ending remains the same of Fallen Stars and the beginning in the sense of like Ilara being in Castor, but so much else changed. Like entire points of view were cut, a whole character was removed. But she's coming in later in the series. But it was so lovely because it made so much sense. And when me and my editor were going through like the original version together and seeing what could be changed, she always said you can push back on anything you want, which I really liked. She said, you know, I'll give suggestions, but you never have to take them on. But when we were talking about the bigger arch of the series, it made so much sense to cut certain things that were cut, to rewrite what was rewritten. And the whole process has been so invaluable. And I feel like it's made me a much better writer. Like I look back at my indie versions, and I know you shouldn't, as an author, you should accept it all, but I sometimes kind of cringe because I just feel like what I've written now, I'm so much happier with. And the trad versions are kind of, I like to describe it as the books I always wanted to write, but I just kind of needed that guidance a bit to write them. So I think it's definitely changed my writing process for sure, but in a really good way.
Well, we are grateful because they're amazing. So
thank you.
And I mean, I've like enjoyed your writing for a while, and I've also really enjoyed Olivia Rose Darling for a long time as well. And personally for me, I've loved to see your friendship develop online, which has been so sweet. And for anyone listening who hasn't read Fear the Flames and Wrath of the Dragons, please immediately read them. I will.
So good.
Amazing. I also read those. I read Fear the Flames when it was indie, and I saw that go through the trad publish. And so going on to that, how does it feel to sort of have such an amazing friend in a very similar position as you, and sort of help navigate that change from indie writers to, you know, trad published, and the world, like navigating the whole new world that comes with that?
It was incredible. Like, it was so amazing to have a friend who, as you said, had gone through every single step of the process with me. We were both indie at the same time. We signed our deals at the same time. We're with the same agency. So we've got different agents, but within the same agency house. And so things like that was so amazing because it can be a very daunting process, and especially when you go into trad, there's so much you don't know. Like I felt like a fish out of water. You know, you don't know what a good deal is. You know, you don't know like if an editor is kind of really going to be in your corner or not. It's really difficult to gauge all these things because it's such a new world. And so having her was amazing because we could riff off each other, you know, we could sort of compare or ask each other, like, what was your experience with this and whatnot. And so it made me a lot more savvy quickly within that world, which I have her to thank so much for. And like what was normal, what wasn't, when I should be kind of like asking questions and when I shouldn't be. And just in general, like she is an angel. Like just to kind of gush about Liv for a minute, she's a beautiful soul inside and out, and I truly feel like she's so similar to me in so many ways. And to have someone who is in the industry and writes as well and be able to kind of give your ideas to and ask them for advice, like when we were in New York together last year and actually got to spend a bit of time together and we're at Polycon together, we would like sit down and I was having issues with my plot for Fallen Stars and the rewrite, and she was giving me advice and she was having some issues with hers and I was giving her advice, and it was just so lovely to have someone, because others it's kind of like you don't feel like you can slide into a random author's DMs to like ask them for advice and a question. So it's so amazing to have her as a friend, and be able to just be creative together is really great. Yeah.
Yeah, no, she's fab. And yeah, like I said, I've loved seeing it happen
Oh.
over social media. It's been, yeah. But
Mhm.
again, if anyone's listening, please read her books because they are
They're
amazing.
incredible, guys. Incredible. I always say, if anyone likes Fear the Flames, hopefully they'll like my book. And if anyone likes my books, I know they will love Fear the Flames for sure. Because even though
Yeah,
they're totally different worlds and characters, they have that similar balance of romance and spice versus plot. So that's why I always
yeah,
think it kind of translates in that way.
yeah. No, definitely recommend. And going back to your books, is there a scene in Heavenly Bodies? I feel like I might know what you're going to say, but I'll ask
Mm.
anyway. Is there a scene that you're most proud of? And also, can we talk about cliffhangers? And are you proud of the chaos you inflict on your readers?
So I think you can probably guess, based off where we've spoken before, the scene I was most proud of writing. There's actually two. So the first is the shadow scene when
Yeah,
Alara meets her shadow. I think that it's such a, even though there's much more monumental moments in the book, especially as we get towards the end, that for me was the most monumental part of Alara's entire character arc.
yeah,
So I felt really proud of that. And I think that's the one that means the most to me. If anyone notices that scene, recognizes that scene, speaks to me about that scene, I always feel really seen and emotional. So I always kind of associate it with that.
yeah,
And the other scene I'm actually really proud of is the cliff scene, funnily enough. And the reason being, I think that it's such a pinnacle of tension and such a turning point for their entire relationship
yeah,
when he goes after her. And I loved writing the tension and how I built that up. And I think how quickly it then pivoted. I was really
yeah.
proud of that and being able to make that happen. And I read it out to someone in my life who's very hard to impress. And they were like, oh my God, I'm really proud of you. That seems amazing. So
Oh,
I always think of that one too, because I'm like,
that's cool.
if they who is not impressed by much was like, whoa, I was like, okay, I feel like I've done something right. So that one sticks in my head too, for sure.
And speaking of characters, I
Mhm.
mean, Ariette is a complex character,
Yes.
villainous, but I would say complex. And what sort of inspiration did you pull in writing that character? And is there anything that you'd like to share that maybe we don't already know about him?
So Ariette is actually one of my favorite characters. And I think it is, as you said, because of his complexities. I can't think of one. Actually, do you know who he has some similarities with? And I realized it recently. So maybe it kind of entered my subconscious mind. I realized it recently when I was rewatching The Vampire Diaries, Klaus Michelson.
Oh,
I feel like
yeah.
his similarities with Ariette are so similar. Ariette comes in and is the big bad, and he is the villain, and he does unspeakable, terrible things, kind of
Yeah.
like Klaus. And I was making these comparisons while watching The Vampire Diaries. Every main character hates him. But then by book two, we realize he has a bit more depth to him, a bit more of an agenda. Some things aren't quite what they seem.
Yeah.
And then by book three, you'll see he has a soft spot for someone. I won't spoil anything, if especially if you haven't read the end of Fallen Stars, which again actually tracks very much with like Klaus and Caroline. So I was watching it back and I was like, damn, like they are actually kind of similar. But apart from that, I can't think of a specific book character. I think I was very, very intrigued. I think villains are far more interesting to write, and I'm very intrigued by this idea that's very explored in book three, which is what makes a monster a monster. At what point do you call someone that? Because
Yeah.
even a monster can have people they love, or some people that you think are the villains, or if they did any of these actions in real life you would condemn,
Yeah.
might have someone they care about. um I love the idea of what kernel of redemption, if any, could a villain have, and how could that be pulled out and explored. So that's been really amazing to begin writing in book three and explore that. And
Yeah.
I think just he was born from anger and wrath. He literally is the embodiment of it and the
Yeah.
god of it. And I suppose he was in part inspired by Ares, the god of war himself, from Greek mythology, which tracks with Ares as the star sign as
Yeah.
well. So that all really was in my mind when I was writing. But I think I sort of gave him, I was speaking earlier about uh having a piece of me in each character. And I think Ariette like took my anger, and I'm really not like an angry person. I don't have a temper. I'm not like quick to anger or fiery in any regard. And so I think in very Alara fashion, I probably suppress it a lot. And so Ariette was that way to get that out. And so he's
Yeah.
sort of just like, he's the pure fury of the world, but he also does a good job of teaching our characters that it can be divine. Like he's got divine violence tattooed under his eye, so quite literally. But I think, I can't remember if it's in book 1 or 2, or if I've written it somewhere anyway, where he's saying to Alara that like rage can be divine, and that women especially are taught to really suppress it. And so for all of his flaws, he really does kind of bring it out of people. He kind of wants people to fight. He likes having a worthy opponent. So that's been really interesting to write. As much as he might hate that character and want to kill them, he will still respect them if they're a worthy opponent. So he's a very interesting character for sure. And to finish off, you'd said, is there something about him that maybe we don't know? And I would say that there's more good in him than you realize that's going to be explored, but he will never have this clean redemption arc where suddenly he's good, because there is so much darkness within him. But he has a respect for people that you might not quite realize based off his actions yet, that's going to be explored more as the series goes on.
Oh, that's exciting. That's and like you say, it's like a kernel, but it's still there, and
it's still there.
And finding that going to sort of the less bad morally, we're entering the morally grey part of this. Like you want readers to sort of relate to Enzo and Alara and root to them, but there is sort of a line there. And do you think that maybe they all need that like tiny bit of good to just keep people, like, even if it is that tiny little bit, you sort of need that tiny bit of good to just attach to and think. And some people will interpret it more than others and find the good a lot quicker. But do you think that, it's really important, especially with the morally grey characters, to infuse that and make it easy to attach to?
For sure. I think you took the words out of my mouth and you said morally great. And it was important that all of my characters were morally great, that they all did questionable things. They weren't just simple good characters.
Yeah.
And I think that it makes not only for a more interesting character, but far more relatable to have flawed characters. I don't like reading books where the characters are really one-dimensional and are just like the obvious hero,
Yeah.
Enzo, to the 5 men he burnt at the stake, is the ultimate villain. That is a terrible, violent, awful thing to do to someone. But to me and Alara and any of the girls kicking their feet at home, it was like a chivalry at its finest.
What a man.
What a man, right? Defending her honor in the most extreme way. So it's fun to toe that line, but it's also important to toe that line, I think. And it also makes for you being able to reflect. I'm sure there are some readers that will have hated Enzo and thought he was really toxic. I had one copy editor in the first book who had actually put a line saying like they were worried he was becoming a toxic asshole, and I actually like fought back, and I was like, that's the whole point. I was like, he's and my editor actually argued for me and said like he is morally grey, and so we kept that in. I was like, there's no way I'm taking this out. But it's just interesting because people will have their own perspectives, and obviously I know there's some people that love the like more kind of golden retriever boyfriend or cinnamon roll kind of book boyfriend. But I mean, I like my fictional men toxic. What can I say? But no, to properly answer, I think that it's very important that they all have a kernel of good, because again, it goes with that relatability. So if a character goes too far and does things that makes you truly hate them, it's very hard to come back from the brink of that. Whereas if they do questionable things, but can also be really good to the people they love, I think you can connect a lot more to that. But what's really interesting is these characters really do toe a line. And in book 3 especially, there are points where they do things that are almost irredeemable, because I always like to say book 3 is kind of where it's going to be darkest before the dawn. And each character is really grappling with their humanity, and they're really trying to grasp onto it. And it's going to be a very, very hard struggle to actually retain it. And to kind of just give you guys a tidbit, Ariette becomes like the moral compass of the group. So if that doesn't tell you how bad it's gonna get and how terrible everyone becomes, I don't know what is going to. So there's your little like teaser that no one else knows yet.
Oh my god. Okay. That's gonna
Be
stick with
ready,
me.
everyone. Be ready. So yeah, it's important they have that good, because it's funny. I think I'm speaking about book 3 so much because it's fresh in my mind. Is
Yeah.
like that's where the kernel is going to be very important, really.
Okay, everyone remember that. Reading,
Yeah, remember that.
remember it.
Mhm.
And yeah, I feel like as well, going into the morally grey, a lot of the times that morally grey element of a book can be more of an aesthetic versus the narrative.
Mhm.
And the sort of actions in Heavenly Bodies and obviously Fallen Stars, they carry so much weight, which contributes so much to the story. And I mean, I feel like you can't say too much, but how do you think you take that to the next level?
I think I'm not entirely sure. I think, sorry, can you repeat that again for me?
So I said that instead of it being like
Mhm.
an aesthetic to the story,
Yes, yeah,
it becomes part of the narrative,
yeah.
and their actions from being morally grey, it carries so much more weight rather than, I suppose sometimes when you have like a morally grey
Mhm.
character, it can sort of be the dark hair and the dark cloak. And I think
Yes,
shadows
yeah,
are a big
yeah.
part of that, but it's so much deeper than that.
Hmm.
And sort of how do you take that to the next level where it becomes them versus the way that they sort of appear to us as readers?
Yes, I love that so much. I think that, like you said, it's about going beyond maybe just how they look or the kind of magic that they can wield, and really tapping into what is a line that they will cross. Because I think that's the important thing that I like to ask my characters when it comes to being morally grey. It's not like what line won't they cross, it's like what will they cross, because that's going to be the point of contention within the book, I suppose. I
Yeah.
think as well, one thing that I like to think with my characters is showing very clearly that balance through their actions. So rather than, again, as you said, like physical descriptors, or maybe that they just have shadow magic and are it's enemies with the protagonist at the beginning, it's actually how they
Yeah.
interact with everyone around them too. So that's why I tried to make my side characters so rich and their relationships with them so rich. Because, for example, Ilara at the beginning of the book, we might think is really badass but quite morally grey in how she responds to like the guards, literally in I think the second chapter. But then you see really, really not long after, and also how she acts with Enzo, like she hates him as much as he hates her. But then you have this interaction with Marissa, and I remember someone commenting on it that they loved that she wasn't just like mean for the sake of it, which a lot of characters, especially female characters, can be made out to be. It's like if
Yeah.
they're strong for some reason, they also have to be like rude and terrible to everyone around them, which doesn't isn't really that realistic and doesn't have to be the case. So I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that with Marissa, she always treats her with reverence and respect. From like their first encounter, she understood that Marissa hadn't done anything wrong, so she wasn't going to treat her badly. And so that's Ilara's moral compass, and how you could make her morally grey, because to others she could be like this dagger wielding like badass who is terrifying, but then to people that really don't deserve it, she shows that good to them. And the same for Enzo. We had him committing like insane violent acts and being awful to Ilara at the beginning, but then you could see the way he loved Leo and Leo's mum
Yeah.
Kalinda. You could see the way he regretted some of his actions so much in his dreams, and so again you could kind of find that morally grey balance. So I think it's really showing both sides of that balance is important for sure.
Yeah. No, perfect. And
Mhm.
going back to Alara and Enzo, you've talked about how they sort of go through healing and they're
Mhm.
both sort of wounded in their own way, but
Yes.
they do heal together rather than one. A lot of the times there's sort of one character that is
Mhm.
healing and puts that sort of dependency in a way back onto the other character, but they
Yeah.
are sort of healing together. And was that sort of your intention in adding that element? And do you think that's sort of what's so key in their foundation, I guess, as a couple? And
Oh, Ashley, you are asking me the best questions, because the things you have noticed are like exactly what I want a reader to notice. So I just want to thank you, because it's making my heart very full right now to be talking about this with you. So thank you for giving such thoughtful questions to me. But yes, it was absolutely intentional to have them heal together. I actually said this in one of my talks in America when someone had asked me some kind of question about their relationship, that so often you do see that either maybe it's just the female protagonist that needs healing and the male
yeah,
kind of helps along with it, or that it's a male that's like really morally grey or has like the really sordid past, and then the female character helps them. But for
yeah,
me, they truly are on a healing journey together. And I think that for all it seems like Enzo is in a much stronger place to begin with, like he has the upper hand, Elara's in his kingdom, he has all of his powers and can wield them perfectly. She's really at a disadvantage. So you might think, kind of looking at it from a bird's eye view, oh, it's him that's really healing her and helping her. But she helps him so much. She helps heal his prejudices against other kingdoms and the shadows and that kind of magic. She helps heal his relationship with his father, and that he's not kind of worthless, or that he doesn't just have to be surrounded by violence. You know, there's a reason why Elara is the only person that Enzo takes to his art room, because that is this whole side of himself. We talk about repression with Elara, but Enzo is just as repressed. He hasn't been able to show the world this artistic, more sensitive side to him. He's been brought up on violence. You know, there's that scene where he tells Elara that there was a bird with broken wings, and when he was young he cried, and his dad, you know, beat him for it, whipped his back for it, and physically hurt him for showing any kind of sign of sensitivity. And so for her to be that space where he can also be himself, for her to visit his dreams and like literally see his subconscious mind and accept him, and like see his art and think it's beautiful. It's like there's so much healing between both of them, and it's so beautiful to see that Enzo pulls Elara into the light, but Elara teaches Enzo that it's okay to have shadows too, and they both complement each other in that way, for definite.
Yeah, no, that's amazing, and that's definitely how it came across to me. So I really enjoyed that element of it, because it does seem, like you say, a lot of times the female protagonist, or then the male character who is on the morally grey side, that maybe she shows him the light. But I love that it's kind of the opposite, to say that your shadows are okay. Which is amazing. And speaking of healing, do you think readers sort of gravitate more towards characters who reflect on who they are, or who they're sort of becoming?
I think honestly, I think both. I think it's a good question, because I suppose some readers might really relate to the unhealed Elara, for example, and then some might relate or focus more on the healed version. So I think it's important to show such a big arc to explore both. And as I kind of touched on earlier, what I hope is that anyone who is unhealed or has dealt with terrible things in their life, or any kinds of traumas, or just any kind of repression at all, anything that connects them to Elara or Enzo or any of my characters really, that they do feel like they're almost on a healing journey as they read, because they're some of my favorite books. You know, I remember I read, it was in the Furibond series that I mentioned to you, in the third book, she oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of the character. Is it Eliana? I don't know. It's the one of the female characters in it anyway. She has to do this like deep healing within her mind. And I remember reading that story and feeling like my own mind was kind of being pieced together a bit and calmed down and strengthened. And then like think about how many people relate to Nesta's stories. For some, one of them, the most unlikable characters in the series at the beginning, but you see her entire healing process and change and growth. And some people felt really healed by reading that, because they saw themselves in her before, and like the bad and the ugly, and then saw how she healed. Or some people didn't like her, but then felt like they kind of healed along with her anyway, and were a different person when they left the book. So yeah, I think to answer your question, definitely both. I think some will focus on who they are at the beginning, and then some will focus on who they are at the end.
Yeah, no, 100%. I am a self-proclaimed Nesta girly, so I appreciate that reference through and through. And as members of the book club community, we often talk about belonging through books. And how do you think Heavenly Bodies sort of explores that feeling of wanting to belong, and that sort of found family element?
Yes. Well, I love the found family trope, so it's so important to me that I had a cast of characters, so that anyone reading the book, if they ever felt alone, they felt like they could be part of that group. And Ilara's an outsider, and so one thing that was so lovely to explore was just how open and welcoming most of the characters were in the book. So not Enzo at the beginning, but you know, when Marissa instantly brings her in, and then Isra, like after their first meeting, really becomes almost like a bit of a guide and a sage towards Elara, and they become close, and she's really warm and welcoming. Even Leo, he's got kind of an overprotective brotherly energy to her, and I think it was just so nice to explore that acceptance, because it was important to Elara. But again, anyone reading it, if they'd ever felt a bit lonely in life, they could just retreat to this world with characters that almost felt like a family to them. So it was really lovely to explore that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if your characters were sitting in this like virtual
Mhm.
room, I guess you could say, who do you think would thrive at book club and who do you think would avoid it?
Oh my gosh. So I think who would thrive? I think Enzo would thrive because he's very artsy and kind of literary and he's not shy at all. So I think he'd
Yeah,
be like very opinionated. I think that Marissa would have a lot of fun, especially if it was romance books that we were talking about. And Alara too. She loves
yeah.
reading, she loves romance. I think Leo wouldn't be all that interested. He'd be like, I'm out of here. Ariette would try to cause chaos and hate on everyone and leave. And Isra would enjoy it too. I could imagine Isra, Marissa, and Alara having their own girls only book club that Enzo crashes and thinks he knows more about the books than them. I can see that happening. Okay, it's canon now, guys. This is real.
It's happening. I love it. And you know what I will say though, like I can't speak for everyone, but I'm gonna make an assumption here. Like my husband has become like his own like proxy member of my club
I
because
love
he's
that.
not in it, but he lives it through me.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
could completely see
That's
that.
so cool. I see it all the time. I get so envious when I see that, or like when people's husbands are reading the books. I always see TikToks like it, like there's one guy who's updating his wife. I think he's reading Throne of Glass at the minute, and he's giving her like chapter updates where he's like, this has just happened. And it's so funny to see. It's amazing.
Yeah, I love it. And their interpretation is completely wild, but
It's hilarious.
yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm
funny.
just gonna slowly start to wrap up because I'm conscious of the fact that, you know, you have just traveled quite the
Oh my gosh,
distance.
I'm having the best time, Ashley.
Okay.
I'd forgotten that I'm even jet lagged at all. This is brought so much life to me. So thank you.
Well, at least you know that if you are ever jet lagged again, we will have you back
We'll
a
just do a
lot.
call.
So just
Perfect.
say like, look, I'm coming back from the US. Should we just book a call, see who comes? We'll just chat
Perfect.
and see what
Listen,
happens.
I'm down for that, guys. 100%. It has just felt like chatting with friends. It's been so much fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've
I
loved it.
mean, that's sort of what we to talk about like book club a little bit. That's sort of what we feel like is a massive
Mhm.
extension of what our clubs are as well. Like it's so like you do just sit down and chat with friends. So it's nice that we
Yes.
can bring that element into our Q&As with authors as
Mhm.
well, because I can imagine you get spoken to a lot by a lot of different people. And, you know, I don't want you to just have a rinse and repeat of
Mm,
what you've had in America. So I'm
yeah.
keeping it fresh,
No,
hopefully, for
it's
you.
great. And like I said to you, that's why I was so excited to do this too with you and members who have read the book and how we can like really dive deep into it and we don't have to worry about sort of spoilers or keeping things surface level. So I've enjoyed the talk so much and it being sort of just with like you guys and sort of a bit more of an intimate setting, I suppose, like on
Yeah.
just on this call. It's been really nice because I feel like I've also been able to take my time answering your questions, which I've loved. So thank you for asking such
Oh,
thoughtful
no, you're
questions
fine.
and for having me.
Yeah, no, you're most welcome. I've got a couple more, but
Yeah.
my next one I have been asked to ask you, but
Okay.
I can, yeah, I want to ask it anyway.
Hmm.
So, can you sum up Fallen Stars to us in a way that will make everyone call in sick tomorrow? And I'd just like to put a PSA in here, not me personally, because I know my boss is on this call and I won't be calling in sick because I've read it. And she also has my proof copy. So, to everyone else who might want to call in sick, sell it to them, please.
Okay, amazing. So, Fallen Stars for me is everything that I wanted to read in a sequel put into words. So,
Yeah.
action, adventure, expansion of characters. We sail the high seas of Celestia. We have
Yes.
tons of maritime folklore, superstitions about mermaids, pirates. I like to
Yeah.
call it my dark, gothic, saltwater tale. And I feel like if you are in any way inclined towards the sea or to pirates and mermaids, you will love it. But on a deeper level, it carries on a healing journey. So there's still a lot of depth to the story. There's still a
Yeah.
heap of yearning, lots of spice. But I think that at its core for me, it's like the adventure sequel you want after you've become familiar with the world. It's like the dead
Yeah.
man's chest of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, you know, there's way more
Yes.
action, we get a lot more plot. So those who have kind of been introduced to the world and love the sort of quietness and closeness of the kingdoms of Asteria and Helios, but we're craving something bigger or to see more of the world, we get to
Yeah.
visit more kingdoms and it really expands. So hopefully, I mean, I'm not encouraging you guys calling in sick, so don't come and blame me, but hopefully that will convince you guys to want to read the sequel.
Yeah, and if anyone needs me to write them a sick note,
Yes.
I can put
Yeah.
my email in the Discord and say
I'll
it's
sign
approved.
it.
Yeah, would you all sign it?
Yeah,
Approved.
amazing.
And just to end, and I personally make an effort to ask this sort of in all the Q&As that I do, all 3 of them so far. But and I love the variation of answers that we get, but sort of what advice would you give to aspiring authors out there?
So I think other advice I'd give, apart from the not caring what anyone thinks, I think I would say truly believe in yourself and your work and write for yourself. This was a big thing I had to learn, especially after TikTok blew up. I started getting really paranoid about that I wasn't going to please everyone. So I kind of remember starting to kind of write to please others, what tropes I saw they would like and wouldn't like. And it started really affecting my voice. And then I took it back and stripped away. And the same thing happened with my sequel. I was so worried because I knew the people that loved Heavenly Bodies. I was so worried I wouldn't do it justice for them. But again, when I breathed and took it back and thought, I have to write this for me, what sequel would I love to read? And then it followed. And I think if you stay true to yourself and authentic to yourself, if you write something original, that does not mean to say you can't use popular tropes and things like that. I certainly did that, things that I loved, I wanted to write. But if you can keep your world really original, your plot original, your characters something people haven't read before, and you're then able to really write for yourself and have your own unique voice, your readers will find you. You don't even have to worry about that so much, or like being palatable to the market, because you will find a readership that's far more authentic, and they'll be so much more supportive of you and like kind to you and really show up for you, because they'll have found you organically because they love your voice and writing, rather than you like trying to rinse and repeat something that someone else may have written. So I would say that's really important for aspiring authors. I would say, kind of to piggyback off what I had just mentioned earlier, really know your worth, guys. I think that it was so cataclysmic that I was indie first, and I have a very special person in my life to thank, because he was very business minded and actually advised me to go indie first. And if not, I may have just gone tried and taken the first deal offered to me. But what he reminded me of was that you can go with a bit of a bargaining chip to the table, or at least have self-belief and make your own money first. And so I would say, honestly, everyone's journey is different, and some of you may feel more drawn to just go querying and submitting. But for me, and the advice I would give, if you start off indie first, then you will see every part of the process, which is really handy to know. You will have the belief to back you up that you can do it by yourself if you need to. And it just means that then if you do end up wanting to go traditional, when the time comes, like it aligned for me at the right time, where I thought, okay, this is the right time, the right people to sign a deal. It means you don't just have to take the first thing offered to you, because you know your worth, and you can be like, I could do all this by myself if I wanted to. So I'm only going to look for people to join my team who are going to elevate the book. And I remember doing that. And the thing that was really important to me was the editors, because I thought they need to see the vision of Heavenly Body. So thankfully I've found the most amazing ones through these calls and stuff. But it's a really good thing to know, guys. So a lot may not say that, but yeah, I would say the way I did it personally, I think was a very good way to have the self-belief to kind of carry on as an author. So that would be my final tip.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. And it is always so different. And that's why I like to ask it, because like I said, quite a lot of our members do write themselves. So I always make an effort to ask that, because it's always an interesting answer. And lastly, can you share with us what you're reading right now, or what you're hoping to read next? Or
So I am reading the This Woven Kingdom series by Tahera Mafi, and oh my God, I'm on book 3. Guys, if you have not read it, pick it up. The prose is stunning. It's like very elevated, quite flowery prose, which I love in a book. I love when a book makes me think and makes me kind of want to be smarter. Do you know what I mean? Like I love a good like modern, easy introduction to fantasy, don't get me wrong, but I really like it when people use language beautifully. So I'm loving it for that reason. Also the characters, and it's inspired by Persian mythology, so that's been so fascinating to kind of learn more about through her books. And I'm on book 3, and let me just say that Cyrus is like making up in the book boyfriend list, because they have such a good enemies to lovers arc, and it's very good. So I would highly recommend. I'm reading all that series at the minute.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm definitely going to read that.
Yeah.
So thank you. But yeah, thank you so much for your time. Like, I could literally talk to you all night.
Same, I could.
yeah,
Thank you so much.
it's been
a blast.
amazing. And I know no one can respond to us, but they'll probably send us lots of love hearts.
Yes.
Keep sending love hearts.
Oh,
but
thank
you everyone. But yeah, it's been amazing. And yeah, I hope we do it again. I know you've got a new book coming out. It's this year, isn't it? End of this year?
Yes.
So we could just tentatively book you in.
Listen, I would love to be back, so I'm there. If you want me back end of this year, I am there, and we can talk all things Holy Monsters.
Cool. Okay, well, get some rest, by the way. Thank you for pushing through jet lag. And
Of course. And thank you for having me, and thank you everyone who showed up who was on the call. It's been such a pleasure to speak, and I really hope you guys enjoyed it.
All right,
Thank you. Bye. See you.
Bye.